Well, one thing about this conversation that we're about to have about fit versus best player, the best player is Bree here on the show, President of Basketball Operations. The fit,
oh yeah,
no worries at all here at this table with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, and myself. We fit together just fine on the PHLY Sixers podcast, hanging out with you back in studio on a Thursday. Another rainy day here in Philadelphia, but hey, we still have a lot of basketball to talk to.
It's supposed to be always sunny around here.
Always supposed to be. Supposed to be always sunny, but a lot to get to as we keep the conversation certainly on the side of the draft with the players, the prospects that we've been discussing with you all, but also about the current basketball team and what it all means when it comes to fit versus best player, with how you would like to see your front office attack this offseason, starting with the third overall pick in the NBA draft. We'll get to, of course, some other things with the games last night. Well, with the game last night. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that.
No condolences from me for you two who stepped onto this show yesterday and said, "Let's go Knicks. Get out of here."
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll talk about that later. Some other news and notes that we do have here on the show on this Thursday. Great to have President of Basketball Ops Bree with us here back on the show on this day. But Derek, man, I mean, look, fit versus best player available. How much of that, when we were talking yesterday doing the show about the 35th overall pick and discussing where you kind of throw that stuff out the window a little bit and you just look at the talent, see what's best available, what's left for you to choose there. But when you're at number 3, though, and you're team building and you look at it, where I make fun of you for talking about how you and Kyle like one player versus me liking a different style of player.
Devon being mean? I didn't know that was possible.
for me liking a different style of player versus what you guys like, and how we team build overall. And as we've talked about, this is an important offseason for the 76ers after what is arguably the most disappointing season in franchise's history with their 24 wins, after we are supposed to be talking about them playing in the playoffs right now. Hopefully at that point in the Eastern Conference Finals. But with Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Paul George, it's already been talked about from the people in charge that they're not going anywhere. And when you make this choice, having some other young players like Jared McCain, maybe Quentin Grimes coming back, and a few others with the Dembona, Justin Edwards as well, you look at, we're already going back and forth where the discourse is nuts about Ace Bailey and who he is as a player, to what the fit might be potentially better with VJ Edgecombe. Yeah. So where are you when you look at a position like this for the 76ers, fit versus best player?
Yeah, so I think there's two sort of aspects to this. First of all, I don't think any of those players, Maxey, McCain, Grimes, individually you look at and you go, well, like a certain player, a draftee has to fit with them. And it's not like, Joel Embiid back in 2017 where you had to account for him, both because of Embiid's unique play style, but also because you knew he was going to be the face of the franchise for 5, 6, 7, hopefully more years to come. With Maxey and McCain, there's not that kind of certainty. So a little bit of either overlap or questionable fit, you're going to factor it in, but it's not quite as big of a deal as it was back then. But I think really what we're talking about here isn't so much fit as it is team need. Because, when you talk about VJ, it's not like he doesn't fit with Maxey. It's not like he doesn't fit with Jared McCain. It's not like he doesn't fit with Quentin Grimes.
Yeah.
You're just worried about having too many guards, having not enough forwards, having, too much positional overlap. That to me is very different because, there's two ways to look at it. I think a lot of people are looking at it like, well, for next year, you need a forward. You've got 3 guards that you believe in. You need a bigger forward, someone to help with your rebounding problems, someone to defend, well, not now, but theoretically the Jason Tatums and Jaylen Browns of the world. You don't have that Ace Bailey it is. I don't look at that at all because, quite frankly, I don't think if you are at a point where you're playing in the second round or even, knock on wood, it is theoretically possible. It has happened before, just not with this franchise. A conference finals, I don't think Ace Bailey is going to be a significant contributor with that team. I just think when you watch him, he is a long way away from being able to play that quality of basketball. So if he is not going to help you next year, then, am I worried about 4 years down the line? No, because if Joel Embiid is done being an MVP caliber player, then everything about the direction of the franchise over the next 2 to 3 years is about getting that franchise caliber player. And when you come out the other side of that, the odds of you getting that franchise guy and still having 4 guards are slim and none. You're going to have to use some of these players, maybe a lot of these players, to flip either for assets or in a star trade. So I'm not worried about having a positional overlap next time this franchise is going to be relevant. So I do think it is a little bit different than it was, like I said, 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a guaranteed guy that you're building
Now we're
around.
getting old, man. 8 years ago, Joel playing his rookie season. Like what a crazy
You don't have
world.
a guaranteed guy. And I don't worry about having too many of a thing like I do worry about fit in the past.
I would say it like this. I would take fit into consideration if you're talking about individual players. I, unlike a lot of people who probably watch the show and a lot of people who root for this team, am not in any way considering this guy has to be able to play with Maxey and McCain at the same time and in high leverage situations, because I think there has been a lot of putting the cart before the horse when it comes to Maxey, McCain. It's like they're two anchor points moving forward. I think we can certainly say that about Tyrese, right? We've seen him succeed in enough situations, as a young player coming off the bench, as a second-year starter in some adverse circumstances, playing next to James Harden in the backcourt, being more of a solo lead type guy, albeit in a disappointing season this year for the team. There are enough circumstances he has thrived in to be like, okay, I feel good about that's an anchor point for the franchise. I was tremendously impressed with Jared McCain. He certainly proved my skepticism about him wrong in terms of how he would fit here, what he would contribute this season, how you'd be able to use him, all that. But I think when you get to the point where you say he has to be considered when you're making a top 3 pick in the draft, when you're making such a high leverage move here, I don't think that's a wise way to go about this. We have 23 games of evidence of Jared McCain at the NBA level. Jared McCain also tore his meniscus, and they took the conservative approach, which was good, but tore his meniscus and missed the entire rest of the season, right? So we got almost all the good of Jared McCain, but not, hey, how do teams react to him now that he's on the scouting report? How does he adjust to how they react to him? All things that are out there suggest that this kid's a hard worker, that he has great attention to detail, all that, all the things that you want in a player and a prospect. But when you already have a smallish guard as one of your anchor points, I still continue to be skeptical that these are two guys that you're going to into the 4 and 5 years in the future saying these are two of our most important players, right? There's a pretty, I'd say, median middle ground outcome where Jared McCain ends up being a 6-man and a very good 6-man, right? But not somebody who you can ultimately play in every big moment against every matchup and becomes a little more dependent on what the game is giving you and, how hot and cold is he running on offense? Who is he able to defend on the other end, so on and so forth. And so I would not consider Maxey and McCain specifically as a combination when I'm making this pick, because I think when you look at these types of guards and the types of teams that have tried to build around them in recent NBA history, the best outcome was the CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard Trailblazers, and they topped out as a team that just got absolutely demolished in a Western Conference Finals that they snuck into against a real contender. Could you have built a better team around them? Yeah, maybe. You could have gotten some better wings, could have had better bigs. You build a different type of roster. You're not a wing guy over there, right? As Pump said, you're a drumstick guy, Derek. But so I just think it's so early. And keep in mind, Joel Embiid's name has not come up, and I don't think it should, right? I just think I am in a headspace where I take what he gives them moving forward as almost a bonus, and I'm just thinking of some of the things that Derek is talking about, which is who's the guy that I have the most belief in to become a high-level player. And I don't really care if that is the perfect seamless fit right away. I don't care if you draft the player and it's we're probably going to have to trade someone eventually. I think this has to be the number 1, 2, and 3 most important things are who is going to be the best player you can take at number 3 4 and 5 years from now. Because as Derek said, I don't think they're helping winning this year, even on the high end. And I don't really care about how they fit with a roster that I think is going to have to undergo significant change in the years ahead, no matter what.
And when we were having this conversation a year ago at pick number 16, we were debating at that time because we didn't expect Dalton Knecht to fall to 16, where Jared McCain we felt would be somewhere in that mix. But even then, when we did our analysis before the draft of do you even consider Jared McCain because of the fit issues with Tyrese Maxey, that was against 16. And this is totally different when you're talking
it's a
about
lower leverage
It was
pick.
against 16, but you also had confidence the team was going to contend for the next couple of years.
Yeah, so
like
you're
you're
talking
in a
about-
different headspace.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So for this one, now you do talk about the future of what it could be and having this one because you may be back in this position at some point, but how soon? And when you look at this particular draft, as we said, different headspaces Derek talked about, we had no idea we'd be sitting here on May 22nd talking about the 3rd overall pick for the Philadelphia 76ers and team need, best player available, or fit being the discussion that we were going to be having. But here we are, and they got a hit on it. And a lot of it does, though. It doesn't necessarily include McCain because we also had conversations of, hey, would you include 3 and McCain to move up? Yeah. But Tyrese Maxey has been pretty much not in those types of conversations because he still appears to be really be a part of their future and what it may look like. So the player that you go out there and you get in this number 3 overall pick has to be somebody that can come in and play sooner rather than later, but certainly be a part of what's going on 4 or 5 years down the line because you don't know where you're going to be. And if Maxey is in fact still here and that player turns into something quickly, then you might have a quicker turnaround to what your franchise looks like at that point because you have 2 cornerstones, one being at that point, like an 8-year vet if he's still here, and then a player in the 3-year vet of who this guy might be to also
Who's
go
making
along.
their leap into, kind of who they really are, right? Because those
In the
first
Maxey
2
stage
years,
right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Because those first couple years, one, you're just figuring out if the guy's an NBA player.
Yeah.
Then there's you graduate from that. And then it tends to be that 3rd, 4th year is like, okay, this is who this guy is going to be at the highest level. Like it might not be the highest stat level, it might not be, fully realized, but generally by that point, you have an idea of like, this is who this guy is and is going to be. So yeah, I think in 3 to 4 years is really what we're talking about here because outside of, Cooper Flagg may be one of the rare exceptions of a player who can come in as a rookie and make a 2-way impact on a team. And he'll be helped in a lot of ways by the fact that he's not going to a team that's just completely barren, starting from scratch, right? Like they don't have Kyrie, which is going to have a huge impact on their season because he tore his ACL, right? I'm not misremembering that.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if he was one of the Achilles guys. Yep. It's too many injuries. So without Kyrie, they're going to be creation starved, but you have Anthony Davis. You have some of these other veteran guys that are at least like, you have a functional-ish team.
It's so crazy that
around
they get this guy.
It is wild.
It's wild.
So I think he's in a spot where I think he's a unique prospect, number one. But number two, I just think it's a better environment for him to try to come in right away and make an impact. Other than him, I think all these guys are going to go through some significant growing pains. And so you're talking about 2-3 years before they – and frankly, that's what Daryl Morey has said publicly about draft stuff, right? It's like generally guys are not actually helpful until year 3. And that's why a lot of the public analysis and reporting from other outlets has been, he's going to trade this pick because he just doesn't believe in young players, really, if you're trying to win right now. It's what makes this whole process really fascinating.
But if he really liked the guy, this is the first time he's been this high to say that player could step in and help out 20 minutes a night and just grow throughout the season and possibly become that player. But I wanted to ask you this, though. I wanted to ask both of you this because as we talk about whether it's Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, some people are throwing Trey Johnson in the chat of being in that spot.
Yeah.
I was going to ask just more of like Ace Bailey. Let's start with Ace Bailey because he's always just a hot button one. The best case for him, fit and need because of what we talk about with this basketball team. A lot of guards, as you mentioned, with 3. Maybe Jared Butler's the guard. That's the 4th guard, and maybe they go in a lot of different directions. how you may watch the rest of these teams that are in the Final Four and what they look like, what their roster build is like with with their basketball teams. But the case for, we know the case against for Ace, for you in particular, but just for some who may, for this particular conversation, as we talk about fit, need, and best, the case for him and the case against him, and the fit with the basketball team overall, especially if he was the guy that you really liked. I know the flaws that he has that you are down on in some of these cases, but if he did have those things, is it more of, okay, well, that's the guy that they needed anyway?
We pivot to talking about Ace Bailey, and you throw it right to me so I can get yelled at just a little
Congratulations
bit more.
on your semi-daily.
No, I mean, look, in theory, like, you would love for a guy to step into that role and be ready just in case Joel Embiid is able to get healthy. Like, Cooper Flagg would be perfect because of that. Unfortunately, there's only one Cooper Flagg in this draft. You know, it is something where theoretically a guy with his kind of, 6'9" frame, near 9 foot, I think it's like an 8 foot, 11 inch wingspan. He could step in.
No, not standing reach.
Standing reach, yeah.
I was gonna say, if he had an 8'11" wingspan, he'd be an alien. He'd be touching both sides of our set.
He might be the number one overall pick.
He'd be number one with a bullet if he had that kind of wingspan. Jeez.
Someone like that who can make open shots, step in, give you a little bit of weak side defense, a little bit of rim protection.
Yeah.
Theoretically, that would be what they need. I think, though, when you watch Ace Bailey and just stop looking at the measurements, he is 3 years away from being able to contribute at a winning level. And this is if the development goes well, by the way.
Yeah.
Being able to be where he's in a playoff roster and you feel comfortable giving him like starters minutes. I think that's a best case scenario. So when I'm evaluating what you need alongside this team in this contention window, this is in large part why I just don't believe that you really prioritize fit in any real meaningful capacity. Because I think it's one thing for Daryl to have a belief that it takes young players time to contribute to winning at high levels. I think generally that is true. I think Ace Bailey is on the longer end of the spectrum with that regard too. I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to figure out NBA basketball and how he can contribute on a winning team like this and at a high level. So if he is your only, because really when we're talking about fit versus, upside or whatever, he is the only one who actually fits. Like, there's really no other option. You're not in a position to draft.
Positionally, it's really not close.
There's nobody. So it's, if he is not on the timeline that you need, then I go, okay, well, who makes the most sense for 4, 5, 6 years down the line? And we can have that debate, and I'm sure a lot of people would take a different side of that debate. But at that point, that's where I go, well, I don't really care about fit with the guards that you have, because I just believe fundamentally you're going to have to restructure that roster so heavily to make that pivot to your next franchise player. These are assets that there's just almost no chance all 4 of these are going to be here in that timeline. But, like I said, theoretically, if Ace you were more confident in his decision-making, he was maybe a little more physically developed and ready to go, yes, that catch and shoot, 3-point bomber who could also then be a weak side rim protector, that would theoretically fill a position of need. I just don't believe it's going to be on a timeline that you need.
Yeah. It's funny because I am not a fit guy, and really fit is the only case that I can make that gets me to a place where I want Ace Bailey on this team.
Yes.
Right? Like that's the whole sales pitch for me, is I don't have to think so hard about how the roster's constructed, about, I got to juggle Jared and Quentin and Tyrese's minutes. It's like at the end of a game, I'm not worried about, I can't get closing time reps for Jared because I have to play VJ, or I have to play Yakachonis, or I have to play Fears, or like whoever it is. With Ace, it's just as simple as he's going to play those minutes, right? I think in most outcomes, maybe I'm wrong, and Nick Nurse would play like Kelly Oubre or some vet guy, and like that might happen, especially at the start of the year. But I think if you want to try to accelerate this guy, whoever it would be, but if you want to try to accelerate their development, it is easiest to do that with Ace because there just is a clearer path to minutes, right? And while there are different ways to develop and you use the G League, you use different tools depending on the player, there is no substitute for NBA minutes. There is no substitute for game situations, right? Like we saw at the high end with young teams. The Oklahoma City Thunder get the number 1 seed last year.
Yeah.
And they go into the playoffs. They run into a Dallas Mavericks team with more experience, with perimeter shot making. And the moment was too big for them. You see this all the time with young, talented teams. They just haven't been there before. You might have been there in college. You might have played high-level games in high school and state tournaments and AAU and whatnot. But there just is nothing that is like being on the floor in those big-time moments in NBA games and especially in the playoffs. And so if you are still of the mindset, hey, we can win right now if we're the Sixers. They can do this. They can, whether it's this year or maybe next year, get to that inner circle and try to contend. That's the case for Ace Bailey. It's not because I think he's going to be the best player 5-6 years from now. It's because there is a clear path to a role. Mm-hmm. He can fill some holes that they have in terms of the spot up shooting, the size, the rebounding, the defensive help he can do. I don't believe in the Kevin Durant outcome. I've been very, very, very clear with that. I don't believe in the Paul George stuff. I believe in him as a clean fit in a roster that has talent that just needs like a little bit of a boost and some better luck with injuries. I think that's a perfectly fine case. If you're in that camp with Ace, I get it, right? Like we've had a bunch of arguments with people regarding Ace. I think that's a perfectly coherent thing to say. Like, hey, I think Paul George is going to bounce back. I think Joel Embiid is not going to be as unhealthy as he was last year. I think Jared McCain is going to take a step forward this year. I don't think he'll suffer another season-ending injury. I think Maxey gets a little better. Then just stick that guy in and say, this is the best version of what this team can be by drafting Ace and then filling in some holes with vet minimums. Like, if you're in that camp, that's great. I don't know that I am there, and I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. So we can just sit here and yell about it for the next month until they actually pick somebody. And
it's funny because there are other players that you mentioned that I wanted to bring up because it was a different conversation when we were at 6 versus when we were talking about 3 for the Philadelphia 76ers. I'll throw those players at the guys and you all when we get back as we hang out with you on this Thursday, talking about fit and need and best player, all of it when it comes to drafting at the 3rd spot in the NBA draft. We'll get all to it right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. And when you get ready for this Memorial Day weekend coming up, the holiday, although it's raining, you're going to have some good time out there with your family and friends. I hope everybody's good. Maybe you've been thinking about a new car and you're looking at a situation and saying, you know what, I need some new wheels, especially in the summer. We're going to be traveling quite a bit, and I want to have something that's secure, reliable, that I can count on, and that's Cherry Hill Kia, our new sponsor here on the PHLY network. If you're looking for amazing deals and super low lease payments, Kia of cherryhill.com is the place to be. They're celebrating Memorial Day savings all month long on their massive selection of over 450 new Kias to choose from. They have over 40 Tellurides, very popular, over 100 Sportages, 35 Carnivals, over 75 Celtos, and over 80 Souls. That's right there at Cherry Hill Kia and cherryhillkia.com. I got to tell you, Kia is the hottest automotive brand in the country for a reason. 7 of their models received 2025 Car and Driver Editor's Choice Awards, and that's amazing considering there were more than 450 models tested, and only 20 models industry-wide received this particular award. And you combine that with the best warranty in the business, in the automotive business, at 10 years, over 100,000 mile powertrain, and 5 years, 60,000 mile bumper to bumper. So stop in today, tell them the cuz, Ant, sent you, and receive a $100 restaurant.com gift card just for taking a test drive or completing a trade appraisal. I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I just don't know why. Drive home in your new Kia today. Just minutes from all bridges or available online 24/7 at kiaofcherryhill.com.
We also want to tell you about TrueMark Financial, specifically their HELOC, that's HELOC Select. If you're working from home, it's time to stop calling plays from the couch. With the TrueMark Financial HELOC Select, you can tap into your home's equity and finally upgrade that home office, build out a better space, or just finish the projects you've been putting off. With the HELOC Select, you get a great low rate, flexible access, so you can pull your funds all at once or only when you need them, lower rates than most personal loans, and no penalties if you pay it off early. Visit TrueMark.com/PHLY to apply and turn your work-from-home game into a winning play. Terms and conditions apply. Visit TrueMark.com/HELOC for details. Federally insured by the NCUA, Equal Opportunity Lender, NMLS 404938. We also want to tell you about an upcoming event for TrueMark because it's time to get ready to paddle up for a great cause. Join the TrueMark Financial Cares Foundation for a pickleball happy hour fundraiser happening Thursday, June 12th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at Dill Dinkers in Lansdale. Proceeds support financial education and community development in your local area, all while having some fun. You can come early for registration at 3:30, followed by a fun-filled round-robin pickleball tournament, competitive or just for fun. If you're not a big deal about playing, no worries about that. Come enjoy Humpty's Dumplings, local tap beer, fun games like cornhole and ping pong, plus raffles, a 50-50 drawing, prizes, and more. For details or to register, visit truemark.com/PHLY.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast. Don't
Probably
forget.
a better chance we play pickleball than golf, right?
Yeah, I'm out. With all the rain that's been happening, I had not been able to get out there and try to get into
Certainly for Kyle
golf
and I,
form.
Well, I'm a tennis guy.
Yeah.
I haven't actually, I don't want to rain on TrueMark's parade, but I have a deep disdain for pickleball.
Okay.
Not just because they are taking up tennis courts, but because pickleball is starting to overtake basketball courts publicly. And I'm not riding on that.
No.
We need to protect our basketball courts from these people playing pickleball. That's what I would say.
Go build another court for
So
yourself.
I'm excited for this fun event.
Yeah.
TrueMark, I think they actually, I was at this event, I'm pretty sure last year, and we hung out, and it was they have a cool facility specifically for pickleball. I'm down with that. Once you start encroaching on my tennis and my basketball courts, we got to have a conversation.
As we talk this hoops and the number 3 overall pick, and we discussed the 35th selection yesterday and some of the players that we like. Well, we want to tell you about the NBA Diehard Draft Guide, your ultimate resource for the 2025 NBA Draft. The draft guide put together by our very own Derek Bodner and CHGO's Will Gottlieb. And they put together a great guide. It's the best. So hopefully, if you're not a member already, a diehard member, go sign up so you can take advantage of this. We are still a month away from the draft. A lot of draft conversation here on this show. I'm sure they're doing so in Chicago as well because they have, the 13th pick in the draft. They're
12,
doing that
13, somewhere in there.
Somewhere around there. So we're talking college
I love that we
hoops.
don't have to care about this.
No, we
right
do
now.
not. No, we do not. And we're going to be prepared to talk about it because of what Derek and Will put together. So once again, the NBA Draft Guide, the Diehard Draft Guide, ALLCITY Network Draft Guide. Make sure you sign up to become a diehard member to do so. And Bree, we had a super chat from That's Crazy saying y'all should check out Maxime Reynard for the 35th overall pick. Well, in the draft guide, Derek, Stanford's big man, the stretch big, is 32nd on the draft guide.
I don't know if I love him for the Sixers. I'm not sure I love him generally as a prospect. Like he's big.
Yeah.
Like I think he can be a pick and pop threat. I worry a little bit about whether or not he has the strength and physicality to match up, whether or not he moves his feet well enough. He certainly has some skill, but I don't think big man's a really big priority. Like it's one thing if we're talking about a long-term starter, but like drafting another one in the second round to be a backup, I don't know. I think I'd swing for a Brian. You listen to this? I think I'd swing for a wing in that area.
Talked about a lot of wings and forwards yesterday on our second round pick show, which everybody should go watch.
Conversation from yesterday, Derek. Why don't you just destroy the Kalkbrenner discussion?
But so at least with Kalkbrenner, he's got a defined defensive elite skill.
And you didn't say no. I was just saying.
And I also think they're like legitimate prospects in that range. I'm just not looking for a center with that pick. That's all.
Absolutely. Well, you brought up the center. The center conversation was a little bit different at 6 when we were talking about Queen and Malawach at that spot. And when we talk about fit and all, they're no longer in the conversation at pick number 3. Both he and the point guard that you mentioned, and even Jeremiah Fierce. When we talked about them, that's not the conversation for those two when we talk about fit, need, et cetera, at 3.
And those two, like when you start talking about Trey Johnson and Fierce, I think that's where like fit next to Maxey starts to get, I think, a little more serious. Yep. Because like I said with VJ, we can debate what his upside is, but and we can wish he was maybe about 3 inches more wingspan so he could defend a 3 and you could run more 3-guard lineups out there. But he can fit next to Maxey. He can fit next to McCain. That's not the issue. When you start talking about Trey, and especially Fierce, I worry about whether or not you can get by with him defensively, next to either one. So even if you trade one, keep the other, I still think there's a very serious concern.
Yeah.
And Pump says in another super chat, Brian Pumper, I watched film on VJ, weaknesses, loose handle, shot creation, inconsistent jumper, gambles too much on defense. Lastly, rim finishing at 47%.
No, wait, was he talking about VJ or Ace?
VJ.
Let me bring up
brother.
one stat here, Brian, since you want to bring this up.
I have plenty of ace stats I can throw at you.
Half-court field goals at the rim. VJ made 43 of them. Ace Bailey made 30 all year. And that's both on and on ball. And you're talking about one guy who's 6'9" compared to another guy who is 6'4". Layups at the rim. Ace Bailey shot 42.1% on half-court layups at the rim. 42.1%. VJ shot 44.2.
Neither one of them were very good.
No, but
one of them happens to be 6'9".
6'9" and a supposedly great athlete. So if you're going to bring that up for one person, I don't know.
So that has been my whole problem with the entire
And again,
pre-draft
Brian's
debate.
now bringing up some like overall finishing at the rim numbers. That includes transition. I very specifically
I don't
talked about
care
half
about
court
transition
because I want to know what
finishing,
you can
man.
create for yourself.
Especially because VJ is probably the best transition
Yes.
player in the entire class. I don't care about his transition numbers for this debate. I don't care about Ace Bailey's transition numbers for this debate. I care about what do you do in a half-court environment. That is the most important thing that these guys have to do. And it's why both of them have very glaring concerns that make this a debate, that makes it so that we have spent a lot of time talking on the show, talking on social, talking to people in the league and whatnot about what would it take to trade down and like what would you want if you traded down? Because as much as people are anchored to this, well, Ace Bailey was the number 2 guy in the high school class and he's the clear number 3. Like, that's not how the league views it. This is not a 3-player draft. It's a 2-player draft, and then it's got a lot of question marks after that. That's VJ, that's Ace, that's Knipple, that's Derek Queen, that's Trey Johnson. Like, there's Malawach, frankly. Like, you could go all the way to like 10 of guys who have, I would say, at least decent upside, in some cases significant upside, but very real question marks and very real flaws that they have to rectify. And I think Derek more than me, has become the face of like, don't draft Ace at 3. I've had Ace at 4, and I've flip-flopped on him and VJ at 3 and 4 over and over again because I don't feel strongly about them. And the problem I have with the pro Ace contingent, who is more vocal and who is more present when we do these shows, is they skew the stats every time. Like, as Derek says, they'll use at rim for Ace and then half-court layups for VJ. It's like, you're not measuring the same thing. It'd be like if I said, okay, what were the pull-up percentages for Ace Bailey? And then I only used general shooting percentages for VJ Edgecombe. Because guess what? Ace Bailey, the elite shot maker, shot 24% on pull-up threes. He was terrible on pull-up threes. And he's supposed to be the guy that drives his value as a prospect. But you would also say he's a very good spot-up shooter, very good catch-and-shoot guy, and that's not all his value. But that's because we care about context and we care about the big picture with these guys, not just what I can use to win an argument or try to one-up somebody. So that's all I would ask people. If you're going to come in here and make your case for different prospects and different players, make your case. You don't have to lie about it. You don't have to distort the stats. I know the stats. Derek knows the stats. Devon knows the stats. We've watched 15, 20 games apiece of all these guys. By the end of the draft process, as Derek has said, we will have watched every game for like every player that could possibly be taken in this spot. We are lucky enough to have access to all that we can do it in a pretty fast fashion, thankfully. Just chill out. The draft is going to be here in a month. We're going to have some debates. We're not always going to agree. It's that simple.
All right. So to stay on the
But keep sending us your money if you really want.
to stay on the VJ part of it though, Kyle, I've seen Chris Dunn as a comp in here, and more so as a shot than the fit next to Maxey, where it's a good thing. By the way, that defense is kind of what we talk about. It's just the shooting that's not there with him. But the VJ piece of it, where we, again, the theme of the show, fit and all that stuff mattering, where he measured out better than expected at 6'5", Derek, at the combine, somewhere around there.
With no shoes.
With no shoes.
Chris Dunn was a 4-year college player who only shot average from 3 and shot under 70% from the line every single year he was in college. Like, you please show at least a little bit of understanding of where these guys were when they were leaving school, how old they were, what type of high school recruit they were, what their international play was. Like, it's just as bad as the comparison to Zaire Smith. I'll say it again. Zaire Smith, unranked player, no-name school, came out of nowhere. VJ Edgecombe, top 5 recruit, goes to a big-time program, dominates in the Olympics as an 18-year-old, and has a good season on a good college team. Trying to compare him to 4-year seniors and guys who basically came out of nowhere and had a fluky, low-volume three-point shooting season is stupid, straight up. Sorry.
Chris Dunn averaged 6 and 2 at VJ's age.
6 points.
Or I'm sorry, 6 and 3. I want to make sure I get that right. 6 and 3.
6 and 3.
Please watch more basketball if you're going to make these ridiculous comparisons. Be like me. It's like we brought up Imani Bates, right?
Yeah.
That, like, people have thrown out, oh, Ace Bailey is Imani Bates. That'd be like me trying to make that comparison, right? Ace Bailey is not that. Ace Bailey played in a major conference at Rutgers, albeit in a bad situation where they didn't win, and put up good numbers on relatively good efficiency, right? There are certainly, the passing is a problem. And were there issues in his game and his impact on winning? Sure. But in no world are we comparing him to someone like Imani Bates, right?
Please no.
Please don't come in here just because it's not your guy and make these ridiculous comparisons for worst case scenarios. Just let's live in reality together. That's all I'm asking everyone.
Ace is the place. Ace is the place. All right, we come back. We'll get into more of this conversation. And yes, we will talk about last night's game because we have to. We're a basketball show. And that was the talk of last night, of course, and the talk of today in the NBA. We'll get to some news and notes as well as we hang out with you on this Thursday on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Well, I'll say this. If you were live betting last night, I hope you went to Bet365, man, and saw the different odds that may have been there for at that time, the Indiana Pacers. So, there's no chance they come back. Or if you went the other way, you probably lost your money. And if you did, I hope you did so in winning the money at Bet365. I really don't hope you won, though. But where there's over 90 million users worldwide, live streams of over 780,000 events a year, early payouts across the NBA and the NHL as well. They've pioneered the live in-game betting, and today Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports, just like you could have last night. The early payout offers in the NHL. Playoffs are ongoing there also. Anytime your team gains a 3-goal lead, you're a winner, and it's an instant payout. If your team goes up by 20 in the NBA, same deal. Instant payout for you right there at Bet365. Breaking news for you, though, at Bet365, and that is new customers getting $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Once again, must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And it seems like some people are coming in here, stumbling in with some half-crock thoughts. Maybe you guys need to stick to a light beer instead. Maybe something like a Pabst Light, one of our wonderful new partners that we have. Pabst Light is a new light modern beer from Pabst Brewing Company. 96 calories, 3.5 grams of carbs, full of crisp and refreshing flavor. They use high-quality ingredients so you can get that high-quality beer at a smart and approachable price. Retains the fun and independent spirit Pabst is known for. But hey, it's light, so you can enjoy a bunch of them. It's Memorial Day weekend. I know it's not nice out right now, but I'm looking forward to getting out in the sun, maybe being at the beach for a little bit. having a nice ice cold Pabst Light. So learn more about the new Pabst Light at pabstlight.com. Please drink responsibly. Must be 21 or older.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast. I do want to tell you about another event that we do have coming up, and that is Saturday, June 14th at Valley Brook Country Club. It is the second annual PHLY Liberty Open, and you still have time for you to enter and join in and hang out with all of us in a few weeks at Jaws's Valley Brook Country Club. It's a great spot. 2 p.m. shotgun start overall. Join us all to come hang out. It's presented by Xfinity. You can sign up as a single, a foursome, or sponsor a whole because you are not necessarily playing, but you still want to contribute in that way. Here's what's included in your sign up. That's 18 holes of golf with the cart, excuse me.
Oh boy, sneezing.
Thank you.
Don't see many Devon sneezes.
Live show. Limited edition PHLY golf tournament. Gifts and tea prizes, Taste of Philly dinner, and post-round celebrity at the pavilion. Also, unlimited draft beer for 2 hours after the round, and contests on the course, and a post-round raffle with Philly memorabilia. So, diehards, you get $50 off of that foursome that we talked about a little bit earlier, $15 off of anything in the individual for the event, and use code PHLY Diehard Golf to sign up. So, make sure you do that to come hang out with us at the second annual PHLY Liberty Open. We can't wait to see you all there.
Sitting here watching Kyle type the chat. I'm just thinking you got to learn to sit back, know when to sit back and observe, Kyle.
It's
Not
easy.
everything needs a response.
It's easy for me to multitask, unlike some people. So, just got to make sure my brain is operating at full capacity.
Yes, Mello. I'm not allergic to the Ace Talk. I like the Ace Talk since it's been a fun debate. So far,
I think it's funny that I am the one who gets a lot of
and you're
the
like
grief,
in the middle,
and I'm very middle on all these guys. There is no guy who's the clear. If there was a clear cut 3,
we would say it.
I'd be banging the table for that guy. I'd be, hey, VJ's the guy. That's not the reality we live in.
Yep, it's not there.
I think what Kyle said earlier, though, I think a lot of people are anchored to his high school evaluation and have not moved off of that.
Yeah. When you look at, though, Kyle, when you look at some of these other teams in the conference finals, let's at least say, and the way that their teams are built, is there any one that you like more so than the other and how they're built in particular? Of course, OKC is OKC. They
if you can build OKC, that's
so. Let's take them out of it because that's the one. That's
right?
the model,
and that's the model that I think the Sixers were hoping for
early
11, 12 years ago when they stripped it down and said, "Hey, we're going to load up on draft picks. We're going to just build this team methodically. We're going to pick up every single thing that we can. And then you nepotism hire somebody and things just doom spiral from there."
But personnel-wise from Minnesota, Indiana, and New York, not necessarily drafting them in particular, but just the players, the construction.
So, listen, everyone who regularly watches the show knows that I am a person who values two-way basketball. And I think what you've seen is the teams that have emerged here are teams that have a lot of two-way basketball players, right? Like I think the main guy who is not viewed as one of those of these teams, well, the two guys would be Brunson and Haliburton.
Yeah.
Haliburton's got some size though. And Haliburton is an event creator. Now he had issues in other ways as a defensive guy that I think he now has gotten to a higher level. But when you look at, Shai is a good defender. You look at Ant-Man is certainly a good defender, and he's got great tools. So even if he's more of a roamer playing off of McDaniels, he can make an impact. Oklahoma City is obviously loaded. And team building around Brunson, what they did was we're getting size and athletes on the wing, getting McHale, getting OG. Towns is a little bit of a shakier link in that chain. He is somebody that I think is generally better suited if you can put him with a rim protector, like you've seen them do with Mitchell Robinson, like you saw work with Rudy Gobert, because I don't think he's the greatest at the defensive assignments at the 5. I continue to say I think it can't be, and this is where NBA teams fall into traps all the time, right? And the Sixers have done this. What happened in the final playoff series they were in, or in the final round of that playoffs, you then just like, all right, we need to build like this team. We got in 2023, right. We got to be the Nuggets. And this year, we got to be the Thunder. This year, you got to be who. It's like You can't think about it that way. You have to be thinking, all right, number one, do we have the number one guy moving forward? And I honestly think that to me is the most fundamental and most important question that they have to figure out.
In a lot of years,
is Tyrese Maxey.
But a lot of years, Joel was the guy in any series.
And like I said, he is just like, he's off to the side for me. I am just not thinking about him as a future thing. So to me, you have to start at, is Tyrese a number one? Because if you do believe he is, then all the roster decisions flow out of that. It's like, okay, how do we build something maybe more similar to what New York has, right? With a couple of like big athletic wing defenders, and Josh Hart I didn't even include earlier, but he's another just like defense first, rebounding, glue guy type player. You load up on the guys that minimize Brunson's weakness, or this would be Maxey's weakness, and he's gotten better defensively and can still do some things offensively. If you don't believe Tyrese is that guy, the biggest priority becomes, I have to get my number one guy moving into the future, whether that's with this draft pick, whether it's with a trade involving the pick, McCain, whoever, like whatever you have to do to sell out to get the future number one, that's what you'd have to do. And they'll never say anything publicly other than, we love Tyrese, he's a franchise cornerstone, all that. But that's where it all has to start. So I'm not anchored to small ball, to bully ball, to it's got to be all 6'8" wings. I think what these playoffs show, and what the playoffs of the last few years have shown, is there is no one way to win. You have to run your own race. You have to get a team that makes sense, that has an identity that you're willing to allow play out over time. I think that's been the thing that's most impressed me with Minnesota, quite frankly, right? It's like, you trade for Rudy Gobert, and at the time, people were like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then you trade Karl Anthony Towns too, and it's like, what the hell are you doing once again? Like, you traded for Randall, who people don't like, and it just looks like you're clearing cap. But having Ant-Man, having McDaniels, having the organizer and Conley, having the defensive anchor, it's a real coherent team. And it does show the value, as we talk about this, of the well-fitting pieces and like very deliberately planning out how you're going to build your version of a championship team.
How about you for the other three teams?
No, I mean, I think for the most part, Kyle's right. Like, you've got to do everything you can to try to get that guy, and then you go from there. I do think that, and this flows into our conversation from earlier, flows out of, I'm not getting caught up in, we have to play this style, or we need this to complement that. I think it's mostly a talent grab at this point. I would love, to Pumper's point, I would love to get some real high-quality two-way wings. Frankly, that's something I've been after for a decade. I think that is always going to be a key in the NBA, especially as there's so much more shooting and so much more ability to pull up from 27, 28, 30 feet. If you can switch everything, you have such a competitive advantage. That is, as I've said before, the one thing keeping Ace Bailey in play for me at that 3-4 spot. It is, for the most part, though, I think you are getting so much skill level from so many different positions and so many different archetypes. There are a huge number of different ways to win. And I think you can look at just even from last night's game of the differences in pace and differences in one coach using 6 players and one coach using 10 players and a coach using 10 players really pushing the pace and trying to take that to your advantage. There are many different ways to win in today's NBA. You just got to start off with a base of talent and then figure out what kind of strategy works from there.
I would also say the one other thing, and I was very struck watching not just last night's game, but also this entire Pacers playoff run. I do think increasingly this is a high feel decision maker league across
100%.
the board. Like, I think historically that was true of your star player had to be the big time decision
Everybody
maker,
else
right?
was play finishers or
Especially
something.
Up until they instituted or they got rid of the illegal defense rules where you're not able to play zone and there are restrictions on how you can shade coverages. If you just had one or two guys on a team that were good decision makers and could beat up a matchup, that's honestly all you really needed in a lot of cases to win playoff games. Now these teams are, it doesn't matter if you're a guard, it doesn't matter if you're a center, they're sending double and triple teams off the ball. Anybody who's a non-shooter is getting ignored in the weak side corner, and then teams have to engineer offense around that. it is increasingly a league where you cannot have weaknesses. It can't be a weakness as a shooter. You can't have weaknesses as a passer, as a cutter, as a decision maker, as a defender. You need complete basketball players at basically every level of the floor. And even then, like, I think Miles Turner is a pretty good player, right? Like, he's someone who can space the floor. He's a pretty good rim protector, has some stuff to him all over the floor. And he looked like a complete deer in the headlights last night in overtime, like fumbling the ball. He's not driving against pretty obvious driving lanes. And so they just said, look, we're going to play up on you. I dare you to try to go by me. And Miles Turner's a good NBA player.
Yeah,
you're not talking about like some no-name second-round pick. That's a guy who's been in the league for a long time. Defenses are as good as they've ever been, and they are as well prepared as they've ever been. And I know that runs counter to the people who are like, NBA teams don't play defense anymore, and like the scores are really high. But like the truth is, the skill level is so high that the only way you're going to win and score in the playoffs is having guys who are not just skilled, but really smart at reading the floor all over the place. Like Haliburton made the shots at the end of that game, but just as importantly, he made 4 or 5 elite reads, turning the corner, finding space, and then open shooter here. Or the open shooter who's not that open, and then that guy makes the quick connective swing pass. That's what's so impressive to me about him and about Indiana is when they're flowing, it is complete unselfish ball flying around, and it is it's a shared responsibility. It's not so much about Tyrese grabbing them by the neck and saying, I got you guys. It's him making the smart basketball play and that leading to the event that happens that ends up winning the game.
And ironically enough, of the question I posed to these guys, it was I talked to them about this a few weeks ago where I brought up the Pacers and how they put this team together in the first place, where they have a second-round pick in Nembhard. They make a trade for Nesmith, who was lost in Boston. Completely lost as the 16th, 14th, or 16th overall pick, whatever he was that year. And Toppin, Haliburton, and Nesmith all from the same draft class and that year, and they're all together because they fit. And then you have the Turner piece. Last year when Kyle brought up the idea we do a show of the next Aaron Gordon type that you can focus on to fill a role on the Sixers, Toppin was one of my choices.
And I will say, Devon, I give him and I give that organization a lot of credit because when he came out of school, that's just a guy that like all they did was they built the offense around him in college. And when he got to the league, that's a guy who's a play finisher and like a really meh to bad defender. And he has become a really complete player. So like I give him credit for embracing a role and doing that. Yeah. But you also give credit to Rick Carlisle and the 100%. Staff there for getting him to that spot and putting him in positions to succeed.
Right. So, look, I didn't know it was going to turn out like this, where he would buy in that way. It was just a guy to look at that say, hey, could he buy into something like the Aaron Gordon role as a starter, though, when we were talking Sixers related? And it's fitting. And Derek pointed out they can go 10 deep with how they do it. And they still have one All-Star for sure. And 2, when you look at Siakam and how they had to decide on where everybody's talking about all these other players and Siakam was going to get traded, Indiana just pops in and it's the perfect fit for how they do it next to how they want to play it next to him, Haliburton, and then with the other players that also just know their roles all around. So, again, it's ironic that we're sitting here talking about it because of my Knicks fandom for as long as he's in that uniform. But that's the type of – that team is fun. And you guys know me, but as much as I love the Kevin Durant team, like that was absolute fun with the Golden State Warriors. I love the San Antonio Spurs teams for all of their unselfishness for how they did it and how they built that basketball team. Oh, I hate this style of play. Not me, Jack. That was some fun basketball to watch them. Just selfless guys, man. Just so just some unselfish guys of how they went out there, played basketball. You know, multiple Hall of Famers on that team with how they did it. And watching the Sixers, it's like, I like a lot of how they play. But damn, I wish it can just be a year after year after year thing where we're talking conference finals, chance to get to the NBA finals because of what they've done. The Pacers are a back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals team. They have a 1-game lead right now in the Eastern Conference Finals of getting to the NBA Finals. And they built that one, and none of us saw it coming the way that we did. Kevin Pritchard was on his way out as a general manager for that team. he's safe now for what they've done.
And did that without premium picks,
Making
without
a
having
trade.
a free agent destination,
making a
market.
trade for your franchise player, and then going to get his running mate in Pascal Siakam and drafting the other guy. So that just leads us into the conversation for last night's game, where you have a 14-point lead with just under 3 minutes, 9 with 52 seconds to play. Go ahead, man.
I mean, I don't know if I have any great insights. It was just the wildest couple of minutes of basketball that maybe I've ever seen. It really was everything about that, from, you know, the way they came back, and New York just completely lost on defense. So many of those Nesmith threes were just either miscommunications or like Josh Hart slips or OG's just falling too back on a drop coverage.
Derek,
And
he
it's
was
like
off balance on a couple of them and still
there were
knocking
so
them
many.
down.
It's like they're great shots, but I just for a team that is so good fundamentally, for them to fall asleep at the worst time, then you add in Josh Hart falling asleep on a back cut for the game winner, and it's just like that was a very uncharacteristic thing. You know, I do, and this is something I mentioned in the Denver series, but I do wonder if Tibbs just having no confidence on really anyone outside of maybe Mitchell Robinson and McBride on the bench, if the minutes might lead to some mental fatigue and some mistakes in games like that, especially against an Indiana team that plays at such a high pace. But even so, the theater of him getting that floater, going, no, I'm going to pull back out, taking the three, making it, do the choke sign, it being a two.
It's really a shame that it wasn't a three, man. Really a shame that wasn't a three.
Come on, man. Oh, man. Yeah.
Just like, what a crazy...
180 spin going back out. Doesn't even get the three-pointer, but oh my God.
By the way, I love the shot that they got of Reggie Miller on the broadcast going and pointing at him.
It was.
I was going to post that with like, if I ever send you this, it means I'm proud of you.
Just the theater of it was all. Look, it's not going to go down as one of the great games in history just because it's a game one. Like nobody's going to remember it like a game seven. But in terms of just pure theater and just the ball, and look, we're all veterans of crazy bounces, so none of us were expecting the ball to go out, but it going up and out of the screen only to come back down through the hoop perfectly, nothing but net. It was, I mean,
I thought it was
I
over
would
at
love
that
to
point.
know
Not
Haliburton,
that kind of over.
what was going through his mind after he made the choking sign and they went to overtime, because, if he would have lost that game, that would have been a fun discourse.
He looked
but
like
that
he
was
just
great.
has fun, though. He doesn't look like he lets
Well,
too much bother him.
Looks like he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder from all the overrated talk and all
listen.
that.
Look at where he is now. Then they keep saying it. This is back-to-back years for them. So those 13 votes, whoever said he was overrated.
I will say, I'm
man.
like, and these guys will know because we watch games. Like, I'm a very quiet game watcher. Like, I'm focusing, or I'm not. I was hooting and hollering last night. That was wild.
I woke my dog up. I yelled so loud when that Haliburton
There was
shot
like a
dropped.
yip that came out of me. It was strange.
That was crazy. Somebody pointed out on the Halliburton front, he now has more playoff moments than some like Hall of Fame guys, which is a crazy thing to think about. And he's, how old is he?
26.
26?
No, he's 25. I think I sent it.
Mid-20s.
Yeah.
So he's got a long runway ahead of him. And he is not somebody who is like an athleticism-based player either. So he's someone you think is going to be really good for a really long time. I think Haliburton emerging as a guy who can be a big-time player in the playoffs, which is one of the questions I had and many other people had, that kind of changes the complexion of how you talk about, what does the East look like moving forward, right? I think to your point, Devon, you said the Pacers are now in back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals. They got to be taken seriously as a threat to do damage and compete for whether it's conference finals appearances, whatever it is, moving forward. This is it's not an old team. They're built around
20.
a lot of.
He's 26.
Yeah, Miles Turner is probably the elder statesman of those guys. They got a lot of.
He and Siakam.
Yeah, and like Siakam, I guess, is probably. And
by the way, we're hitting overtime, everybody. Stick with us at allphly.com. Thanks on the TV side. Continue to watch the PHLY Sixers podcast here at allphly.com.
So I really respect what they have built there. But I'll also, as we're wrapping up the show about fit and how much consideration to take all that, it's also, the Pacers are a great example of not boxing people in necessarily, because Aaron Nesmith is where I would go, right? Come out of college, his sophomore year at Vanderbilt, he put, I don't think people remember this now. He had an outrageous season. He shot 52% from three on over 8 attempts per game at Vanderbilt.
He zoned out all year.
Which is just like, those are preposterous numbers. That's basically impossible to do that at that type of volume. And Boston drafts him.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we're drafting this kid to be a shooter. And then he shows up to the league and was pretty inconsistent while he was in Boston. Role wasn't always there. And he moves on. And he has reinvented himself in Indiana as he was the guy for most of that game that's like, Jalen Brunson, I'm getting into your chest. I'm, jostling you, elbowing you, probably fouling you a few more times than he got called for. But he turned into more of a defensive player. And so that's an example to me of why the background stuff is important, like getting an understanding of these guys as people, because that to me is always the best indicator of if you're going to get an unexpected outcome, if you're going to have a guy struggle, but break through that struggle, break through that wall, and be a better player, a better person for it.
And give him time to do so.
Yeah. Those guys, like, you can generally identify those guys from whether it's interviews, talking to coaches, watching how they work out, just like all the intel gathering these teams do. That's where I and probably we are at a pretty big deficit compared to NBA teams. But it's why when a lot of the chat turns into, or a lot of the public debate is, well, this guy shot X% from three, or he did this at the rim, or these were his free throw numbers. Those things are all important, right? You don't ignore the stats, but it's just as important, if not more important to me, all the stuff that you know about this guy as a person, because these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who are becoming professionals for the first time, getting handed a lot of money and responsibility and moving to a new place. Character, in a lot of cases, is what wins out. It's not skill. It's not raw talent. It's not best fit in the perfect organization. It's what are you willing to do? And guys talk all the time. They don't know how to even work until they're 4 or 5 years in the league. There are guys who do interviews all the time. I got to the league, and I didn't know how to work the way you need to work to be an NBA player. That's a real adjustment. That's why some people also didn't want Ben Simmons to be Rookie of the Year, because he got his, sabbatical while he had his foot broken, where he got to learn about a lot of stuff like that. But
didn't he have a bonus tied to that too? I think he had a bonus tied to Rookie of the Year. He got a lot of money for winning Rookie of the Year. Anyway.
So I would say, all I would say is, and this doesn't apply to any one individual player, ignore the character and work ethic stuff at your own peril, because the Sixers have benefited twice with Maxey and with Jared McCain by identifying those guys and saying, the concerns maybe they have, we don't care. We know they're going to come in and work.
Yeah. Yep. So that's that. Let's move on to some super chats.
Ace debate. Let's go.
Let's go to Marcus Blackstock Bree. I just want fundamentally skilled hoopers at this point. What we just talked about, right?
Sign me up.
Yep. Marcus, I'm with you. I like Ace.
Apparently we're having a debate about what that means,
yes.
but
just
and you got one in McCain for sure.
Man.
You got one in McCain.
Well, and so actually, I should have said, I brought up the not being anchored to McCain thing earlier, but if we are talking about the high feel, intelligent guys, he is certainly at the high end on this team. In fact, I think you could, despite how young he is, you can make the argument he's the most high feel player on the entire roster.
Yep. Let's go to Sanj on this one. Sanj saying, miss me on the small college sample efficiency stats. Eights needs to add 15 pounds to finish inside. True movement shooter, quick, high consistent release, excellent body control midair, and see the
specific play.
So Indiana 907 left in the game.
So first of all, like we didn't really focus on stats. Like Brian Pumper brought up stats, so we brought up Ace's exact same stats. Like he brought up VJ stats, so we responded with Ace's stats. I don't think our argument with Ace has really come down to numbers, though.
No.
Like, and as a matter of fact,
It's watching all the games.
yeah, I'm at the point. I think I'm at like 27 of his 30 games watched. It is the
You're
tape.
ahead of me. I think I'm at like 22.
It is the tape that is convincing me more and more that I don't trust him, not the numbers. Numbers have been there for 2 months. I don't worry about that. And the difference between like a 54% true shooting and a 56%, I'm never making a decision based off of that. Our stance has almost nothing to do with efficiency stats or analytics or anything of that sort. In terms of what he brought up, though, I agree with a lot of it. Like, I believe in the purity of the shot. I believe in the off-ball shooting. I believe in the movement shooting. I don't agree with the body control. We don't have to belabor that one too much. But there's a whole lot else that goes with the game of basketball than just those things.
So I will just bring up something that I have talked about with members of our Discord and probably in chat at some point, but I am not, my brain's all over the place during this time of the year. People are comparing him to Jason Tatum a lot recently as a guy who probably took too many mid-range shots, who his three-point shooting was not as good as people wanted it to be for a player who's billed as this is a shot maker, right? A couple important things. And Derek brought this up today on our Discord. Derek said he ignored the growth that Tatum had shown from high school to college more than he would have in hindsight. That should have been viewed as we're talking about work ethic and character and, you know, how does this guy get from A to B to C? That was a data point that Derek has said he missed on, that's something that you now factor into, okay, how do I evaluate players moving forward? The other really big distinction between Jason Tatum and Ace Bailey for me is not that Jason Tatum was a better finisher by percentages at the rim in colleges, although he was by quite a bit. It's that Jason Tatum got to the rim way more. Something like 31% of his total half-court attempts are shots at the rim. And most of those are self-created. That's Jason Tatum getting by guys, breaking down guys, going through people, drawing fouls, getting to the free throw line, and just scoring around length in traffic, right? And so maybe you say, all right, well, his frame was a little more developed, right? Like he is a little more muscular up top. Ace is a little lankier. I agree, he's got to put weight on, and he's young enough that he should put some pretty considerable weight on. But it's not the fact that, he shot 40 whatever percent at the rim in the half court. It's that he did not get there. And the guys that you compare him to, it is the Jabari Smiths. It's not Tatum. It's not Jaylen Brown. It's certainly not Kevin Durant. It's guys that we see in the league now who also can't dribble, who also can't get to the line, who also do not get to the rim, that had similar concerns in college that have been borne out in the NBA. So I get the point that you're making, and I think Derek and I, I'm less skeptical of Ace than Derek, but I'm still a somewhat skeptic. I believe in the shooting. I believe in the defense. I believe in a bunch of things that he does. The driving stuff and the playmaking and the feel, those are all very real questions.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I mean, like I said, because I went back, I wrote the Draft Express Tatum write-up, the final one before his draft. And I went back and I reread it, and a lot of what I wrote was like, he improved as a driver from high school. He improved his mid-range game from high school. He improved his ball handling from high school. And I think I didn't give enough credence of he will continue to improve that. Now, look, he improved it at an outlier level. Like, I don't think anyone would have predicted this, but him extending that range to three-point range from the college line, I think should have been pretty predictable in hindsight. Him getting to the rim more as his ball handling improved should have been pretty predictable. I felt like he settled a lot at Duke. Whereas with Ace, I feel like he can't get to those spots. That is a very, to me, fundamentally different concern when I have a lot more, that weighs a lot more heavily on me, and the passing is just orders of magnitude worse. Like, so much of his read and react stuff, I have very, very serious questions on. Look, it is tough. Like, every now and then somebody will improve a lot more than you expect. I think there are a lot of indicators that Ace has a lot of work to do.
All right, let's get the Brian Pumper's next two.
The Ace Bailey Variety Hour.
VJ's jumper is shaky. I'm sorry. This organization's track record with athletic defenders, with raw jumpers are not good. Spacing is tragic, fellas. Sorry. He continues in another super chat. Also, no one is trading up for VJ. It's Ace Bailey for everyone. I wonder why.
Well, first of all, incorrect. There are absolutely NBA teams with VJ over Ace on their boards. I know that for a fact. Number two, certainly have not heard any trade proposals other than people who are talking about what the Sixers might want to do at number 3. So I think the Kevin Durant thing, I'm almost glad that it has come up in this draft process because it's very instructive. If prospect Kevin Durant was in this draft, there is no shot he is going number 3. 0.
No, yeah.
0.
He was one of the best basketball. He was the best basketball player in the country.
People would be banging down your door to trade for number 3. That is not the case right now.
All right, and one more last minute one from AKA Mr. Sandman. Bring me a dream.
Here's my other favorite Ace propaganda.
A lot easier to get to the rim at Duke with other 5-star blue chip recruits. Ace played at Rutgers.
I beg of you to watch a Rutgers game. Yes, their team sucked. They absolutely sucked. They played with 2 traditional big men a lot of time in the year 2025. It was painful to watch. But watch him try to beat a wing player off the dribble. Just watch him try to do it. This isn't just a spacing thing. He does not get by guys. It's not like he got by guys, then ran into a wall. He couldn't get by guys, then forced a shot.
So I would say this. I agree. Would Ace Bailey have had an easier time at Duke? 100%. Yes. It's a better program with better structure, better teammates, although you're leaving out that the number 2 overall pick that everyone expects to go was his teammate at Rutgers. Do you know who chose to go to Rutgers when he was, again, the number 2 recruit in his high school class and could have written his ticket anywhere? Ace Bailey chose that. Ace Bailey chose to go to Rutgers where he would be one of the featured players, and it didn't matter if they won. It didn't matter that they missed the tournament, that he was going to just take a bunch of terrible shots and be the player that he's always been, right? So, I think we talked a lot about Paul George last year, right? Where it was he would talk and act and carry himself as if this team is happening to me and not the other way around, right? There's a little bit of that, and admittedly, he's an 18-year-old kid, so I'm not holding him to a decision he made as a teenager. But you can't come here and tell me Ace Bailey couldn't have gotten a gargantuan NIL check from almost any university in the country for a better team with better structure and better coaching. He could have written his ticket anywhere. This is where he chose to go. Cooper Flagg, number 1 guy, went to Duke because Cooper Flagg cared about developing, cared about winning, cared about whatever. A lot of guys, this is the biggest choice that they have made in their life up to that point. I'm not saying they have to get it right and we have to hold it against them, but there's a little too much oh, well, he fell out of the fucking sky and ended up in Piscataway, New Jersey. What are we talking about, man? He actively chose to go there.
If Ace went to Duke, 2 things would have happened. Yes, he would have gotten a lot more spacing, but with that, he would have gotten a lot more scrutiny. And all of the people, and there are a lot of people, I'm not saying every Ace supporter, but a lot of people who have watched highlights would have watched actual games and would have watched some of those bullshit shots that he pulled up to take, and he would have been scrutinized a lot more.
All right. That's it for our super chats. We appreciate it. We need to just talk Ace every day, man, because this is always.
Oh my God, we're getting Cooper Flagg as Tyler Hansbrough. I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
Only one news and note today.
I'm gonna lose my mind
just because we're up
Tyler
against
Hansbrough didn't go into U.S. Olympic camp and compete with fucking LeBron James and Steph Curry. What are you people talking about?
David Adelman.
I feel like I'm having a stroke reading some of these comparisons.
Is it Adelman, right?
Oh
Adelman.
my God.
David Adelman named the head coach going forward for the Denver Nuggets. Did a fine job getting them to the second round, Game 7
Good
against
for
the
him.
OKC Thunder. He gets the full-time job going forward, so we'll see what that looks like. Do they have a general manager?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. So that's interesting. So we'll see what that situation looks like going forward.
That is a little weird that they locked him in without having the front office.
Exactly.
Hopefully I don't really care what happens.
Well, it has never backfired hiring a coach before the GM.
If only there was recent evidence that we dealt with.
This is why I asked. And so now we have more news and notes tomorrow with some things around the league. We'll throw those tomorrow. But on the way out, let's go to our world famous.
I don't even know if I can do the
roll call.
I'm sick of looking at these. Cooper Flagg is Tyler Hansbrough. It's going to send me to the goddamn moon. Guy who shot 38.5% from three on like 4 attempts per game.
You want to do the roll call? Let's do the roll.
I need a Pabst Light.
Let's do the roll call. Money Mar, what up, Mar? SB Cole, Duck Holiday, Haidar. Good to see Haidar in there. What up, Haidar? B Knight. What up, Brian Knight? We also had in there Val, Purple Heart.
Who had a
Mary
completely different
Overfield.
name. Did you see her name?
Who?
It was like the Boogeyman.
Yeah,
Who
Jess is the
Yeah.
boogeyman.
Oh, she's
now.
the boogeyman now. Okay.
She must be a Pacers fan.
The boogeyman is in there as well. And I also saw Mary in there. Phil Evans, what up, Phil? Just ticked off Kyle with the Hansborough
Phil,
comment.
I love you,
What
buddy,
up,
and
Phil?
thanks for being here, but I can't. Tyler Hansbrough, man.
Damn
Listen, everybody who watches this show knows I'm not the white prospect guy, right? Like I constantly
Yes,
make
that's
fun
true.
of like slow white guys playing basketball.
Although like
Cooper
Con
Flag
Kniffle.
ain't the one.
Yeah, and Con Kniffle, we like them too. INS, we got O in the chat. What up, O? Good to see O in there. Mellow 3-point. Mellow, my man. What's happening? Bootzilla Boots. What up, Boots? Reem Williams in the chat. Brian Pumper, thanks for all the super chats, B Pump. Thank you as always, SB Cole.
Speaking of, before you leave, just there's one more that came up.
Joe Cook.
Yeah.
Spacing is a concern when you play with two bigs.
Well, when they can't shoot, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Their bigs were bad.
Otherwise, we've seen two bigs succeed, like Holmgren and Hartenstein. They're in the conference. We last year with Kat and Rudy Gobert. Now Julius Randle. That's fine. Mitchell
Cooper
Robinson.
Flag, BJ Mullins, apparently.
No, he's not.
I mean-
Sixer, by the way. VJ Byron Mullins. That was part of his about. Who's that guy? In that segment that we had there. Thank you, Joe Cook, for that one. I see it now with the boogeyman. That is funny. Thank you, Purple Heart. All right, we also
Apparently,
had,
that's like a. I think she was in a. She said in the chat that I think she went to a Dolphins YouTube show or something like that. So she switched her name up.
Right. That's crazy. Also in the chat. Who else did we have in here? Just Tom _Tom there. We had Mr. Sandman Bring Me a Dream. Thank you for the super chat and just the talking all the way through the chat in general. Who else? I wasn't prepared for this. Nana is in there in the chat. Good to see Nana there in the chat. Marcus Blackstock, thank you as always. Marcus, Smy Guy, and so many other
Kareem is
people.
now just throwing out
Better
white
love
guys to
somebody.
piss me
Love
off.
somebody.
Keith Van Horn.
Michael Sale.
Come on, Kareem.
So,
Do better.
Fi Chi, thank you everybody. And with let's give him the opportunity on the bell to just get it all out in the bell in the chat.
I'm not
Make
breaking
sure
it
you
like
like
you
and
two.
subscribe to the show. Hit the like button as always, and that is you saying thank you to our president of basketball ops, the best that makes this show run. That is Bree, the best producer, of course, out there for us. When you do so, when you hit the like and subscribe button, you hit that bell icon. It will sound like that Kyle hit it already on the bell to let you know that it is showtime. DC Marley, we see you too. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We went a little extended time in the overtime. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. on a Friday as we all head into Memorial Day weekend. Game tonight, game 2 in the Western Conference Finals. See how that one plays out. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 right here on the PHLY.
What up, Nona?
Podcast. Hey, Nona.
We all silly like the mayor.